And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. That's right, it's time for Coffee Talk as we take a look at what is going on in the world today and have a little bit of a discussion, taking a look at news articles, reading through news articles, and sharing thoughts while it's still legal to do so. Of course, you can find me on YouTube, and this is where the live portion is broadcast on YouTube. Coffee Talk or at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, as well as Prepper University on YouTube, or Coffee Talk Chat. That's at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. And for those of you who are listening and not able to see, of course, I will read through as many of the comments as is reasonable so that you can keep up with the conversation. And just acknowledging some of the people that have chimed in thus far. I see Brian is here today. Helter. Dragon is here. Donna Beaver, who reminds everybody to please do thumbs up and share. And certainly, if you don't mind, that would be great. Gary Edwards is here. D'Lo is here. Bingo is here. Sean is here from Northern Illinois. Is it cold up there? Again, I used to live in Illinois. I have Dusty joining me here in the background. For those of you who can see, that's Dusty in the chair. She just jumped in there a few minutes ago, actually. I didn't think I was going to have anybody. Everyone was in the, everybody's in the room until I start, and then they take off. Anyway, before we get going, wanted to share this from ScrewTube. They sent me this email to let me know how badly I'm doing. There it is. This is for Prepper University. I had one also for Coffee Talk. I think I deleted it. But look at this. Goes to show you how they suppress your channel, actually. Prepper University, here's how your channel did last month. 94 new subscribers, but 60,000 videos were viewed. So 60,000 videos were looked at on that channel. But I only got 94 subscribers. That doesn't make any sense, does it? And Coffee Talk is just as bad. Coffee Talk's even worse. Sean says they got 6 inches of snow. Rarely snows in Georgia, rarely. And Urban Angst is here. Glad you could make it today. But yeah, this is how they remind me that my channel's being crushed. And it says, celebrate the best of YouTube in 2023. You did great last year. I can't tell. I can't tell. Because you guys are crushing me here. You're crushing me. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's all right. I'll keep doing what I do and sharing it with everybody. And speaking of sharing, I'm going to share this article because it came up in discussion over the last couple of days. So I did find something on it so that it could be described in better detail. And this is from the Independent News, and the article reads, so the headliner here, they're coming for our homes, quote, conservatives disagree with Massachusetts asking residents to help house illegal migrants. Now, I've heard this from Massachusetts and from New York. There's not a mandate to force you, but they have asked. And Savage Lee is here, and they say sunny, clear, mildly breezy, around 55 degrees. I think it's about 48 here right now, where I am in Georgia. It's 48 degrees. So looking into the article, conservative Americans have been talking that the Democrat government might be coming for their homes. That's not a very good sentence. Did AI write this? It says story by Asser F. I bet AI wrote this. And it's not just conservatives. A lot of people are concerned about this. However, Massachusetts began to ask their residents for help in order to house illegal immigrants a few months ago for obvious reasons. Conservatives on social media are lashing out with this information. According to sources in August, Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey urged residents to volunteer to host migrants, addressing a surge in arrivals. Despite a state of emergency declared on the same day due to a lack of shelter, there is neither a law nor proposal bill mandating residents to host migrants. Healy's plea, captured in a viral tweet, emphasized the need for safe housing but didn't institute a requirement. Okay. Also, it says liberals are stating that the fact the state is forcing residents to house the illegal migrants is false. However, the fact remains that the state is asking for their residents to house these people in order to, quote, help them. For the time being, it is not a mandatory requirement. All right. So I know in Massachusetts, and I think in New York also, again, that request did go out. There is not a mandate. It bothers me that the end of this paragraph says for the time being it is not mandatory, not a mandatory requirement. That's creepy, but it would be highly illegal. But if they were to declare martial law in the state, they could try to force it, and then you'd have to wait for the court to sort it out. I don't think anybody has complied with this. As far as I know, I have not heard of anyone offering up their home or offering to lend a room or anything like that. What I heard was that they were going to try to give a monetary incentive, kind of like foster care. When you become a foster parent and they put a foster kid in your home, you get a check. And that they were going to try to do something like that, which is just spending more tax money, basically. But they're not forcing you, not yet. But if they did, it would be technically illegal because it violates the Constitution. Urban says, I just subscribed to Penny University. Did you? Well, I appreciate it. 500 Magnum is here. Savage says it's not bad weather for January. And Cruising says they asked, the next step is paying a tax to opt out of participating in a housing program. Then someone says the Third Amendment doesn't apply because illegals aren't soldiers. Yeah, there you go. There's your timeline, everybody. Cruising figured it out. And Preparedness is here. Preparedness veteran. Glad you could make it today. So yeah, they're not requiring it. They did ask. To the best of my knowledge, no one has offered to help. I sure as hell wouldn't, even for a check. I don't know who the hell these people are. I don't know who, not very Christian-like, they would tell you. That's not very Christian. Read your Bible. Nowhere in the Bible does it say you have to help everybody. Dragon says the reason for the sudden influx is because the word got out that Massachusetts was a great place to seek asylum with free hotels, strip-ins, food, and clothing. Yeah, indeed. And Helta says the Boston area already has a massive housing shortage. Buildings are going up anywhere they can be built. Most of these apartments are not affordable for the average person. And Merv says they're not soldiers yet. Indeed. Gary Edwards said there's a lot of unoccupied commercial buildings in liberal cities. It won't be long before the cold winter starts driving the illegal immigrants to break into empty office spaces. That could happen. Many of them are coming from parts of the world where they're not accustomed to that kind of cold. Now, this is big news, this next one. And this is actually an article from Rolling Stone. But it doesn't matter. You'll read the same thing anywhere. Texas just took its border battle with the U.S. government up a notch. They did, actually. They did. And here you see them putting up fencing. The tension between the state of Texas and the federal government over the border escalated on Thursday when the Texas National Guard seized control of Shelby Park in Eagle Pass, Texas, denying entry to federal authorities. The seizure followed Governor Greg Abbott signing an emergency order granting the state guard full control of the park over the objections of local officials. According to two U.S. officials who spoke to CBS News, the Texas National Guard is now barring federal U.S. Border Patrol from entering the park, which runs along the bank of the Rio Grande. They are denying entry to Border Patrol agents to conduct our duties, one officer said, questioning what authority Texas officials have over the federal government. Eagle Pass has become a focal point of Abbott's crackdown on illegal border crossings through Texas. Last year, the state government deployed controversial river barriers down a 1,000-foot stretch of a portion of the Rio Grande near Eagle Pass. On Thursday, the Justice Department filed a complaint to the Supreme Court challenging the legality of the barriers and asking the court to intervene against an escalation of the state's measures to block Border Patrol's ability to patrol or even to surveil the border and be in a position to respond to emergencies. I think that's really interesting that you're getting a halfway decent article out of the Rolling Stone of all things. Because the way they wrote this makes more sense than any of the other ones I've read, having not read this before just now. And Rolling Stone is usually like sickeningly, drippingly liberal. It's interesting. But anyways, basically, the Texas government's had enough. They're running out of money. They're running out of space. They don't want to deal with it anymore. The federal government has basically become their enemy. The Border Patrol, who must obey the federal government, is not being allowed to do their job. And so Abbott was like, all right, you know what? You can't do your job anyways because the Biden administration, the current executive branch of the government, has taken away your authority to reject people crossing the border or to repatriate people, aka send them the hell home. So we're going to seize the park. I'm going to state of emergency. National Guard's going to seal that park. I've had it. And we'll see where this goes. Uncle, what are you doing back there? We'll see. Uncle is back here scratching the rug. We'll see where this ends up. As we catch up a couple of these comments. Cruising says they might have luck if most coming over weren't military-age men. Good point. 500 says it snowed here several years ago in Georgia for the first time in my life that I can remember. I wish it would happen more often. Georgia is almost always hot, though. And All People has joined us today and wants to know what he missed. Well, we're getting around to it. He wants to know why local officials objected. Well, I think they said two. They mentioned two local officials. Two U.S. officials who spoke to CBS News. So two local officials complained. I'm sure you can always scratch up somebody, All People. Urban says, would it be too much to say that the traders are in charge of the nation? Weaponized human trafficking is the federal government's way to suck the wealth right out of Texas. This is Mexico-style law. Well, it is the migrant industrial complex now. Gary Edwards says, Texas National Guard, we don't need no stinking badges. There you go. What movie was that from? I can't think of it. I know the film, though. They were mining for gold. They were mining for gold. And I can't think of the name. All People said Rolling Stone recently called Elon Musk a conspiracy theorist because he stated the Great Replacement was a real thing. Yeah, Rolling Stone is, like I said, drippingly, sickeningly liberal, but this article is accurate. It's an impartial article. Helter says at least Texas is doing something. I'm not sure what Democrats think they are doing, somehow importing votes. I don't know what they think they're doing either, other than just diluting the American experience. It's too much. We're losing our identity. No, Sean, it's not Blazing Saddles. It's not Blazing Saddles. I'm sorry. But yeah, there's too much because they bring all their problems, they bring their culture, they bring their languages with no interest in learning English, no interest in learning no interest in learning the culture, no interest in anything like that. It was a Humphrey Bogart film. It was a Humphrey Bogart film, and they were mining for gold. That's what I remember. But that's where that "we don't need no stinking badges" come from. No, bingo, it's not Brokeback Mountain. Shame on you. That the quote from that is, "We don't need no stinking condoms." Oops, I've done too much now. We're gonna have to move on. We're gonna have to move on to DC, and this is from the Daily Beast, talking about Biden, if it ever comes up, because something happened. Oh, it cut me off. All right. Well, I guess we're going to skip that one. I guess we're going to skip that one because the Daily Beast wouldn't let me look at the article. That's insane. So we'll do this instead. I thought this was hilarious. And this is from Fox Business. White House praised Hertz for accelerating the EV transition months before the company began dumping EV vehicles. And this is new. This is new news, and that did happen. Hertz Rent-A-Car rental services got huge praise for buying a huge fleet of electric cars. Hertz is now selling them all. They're dumping the entire EV market. So, article reads, the White House praised Hertz as one of the 4 largest car rental companies in the world for its efforts to substantially increase electric vehicle rentals months before the company announced it would largely abandon EVs over increasing costs. On Thursday, Hertz Global Holdings announced its financial filings that it made the strategic decision to sell 20,000 EV vehicles from its U.S. fleet, or about 1/3 of its global fleet, according to the documents filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Hertz sales of EVs began in December and will continue in an orderly fashion throughout 2024, and a portion of the proceeds from those transactions will be invested in gas-powered cars. The company expects this action to better balance supply against expected demands of EVs, the company stated, before pointing to the high costs of managing electric vehicles. This will position the company to eliminate a disproportionate number of lower margin rentals and reduce damage expense associated with electric vehicles. The company will continue to execute its strategy around EV mobility and offer customers, a wide selection of vehicles. Going forward, the company will continue to actively manage the total size of its EV fleet, as well as the allocation of EVs among customer segments, including leisure, corporate, government, and rideshare. However, prior to the announcement Thursday, the White House had repeatedly lauded Hertz for the company's public commitments to transition its fleet to one more reliant on electric vehicles. So basically, in order to virtue signal and get a pat on the back, Hertz heavily invested in electric cars in the United States and in Europe. And nobody would rent them. Nobody would rent them because they're unreliable and in some cases dangerous. Furthermore, Hertz apparently has had a lot of problems with maintenance on these vehicles. They're really expensive to maintain, and it's just not worth it to them. So they're selling the American fleet. They're going to keep a few, but they're selling a minimum of 20,000 100,000 of the vehicles that they purchased, and that's just in the United States. It makes up a third of their global electric vehicles. 1/3 of them are in the US and they're selling them. They might keep a few, like they said, but it was a huge disaster for Hertz. Huge disaster. So we'll catch up a couple of comments here. Gary Edwards says, in the Upton Sinclair book, The Jungle, European immigrants were encouraged to come to America in order to replace union workforces. It diluted the power of communities and labor unions. Yeah, there's a lot going on in Upton Sinclair's book. It's great until you get to the final chapter. It really is. It's a good book, and it's got a lot of interesting detail that was true. It was true for the time. It's still true. But and some versions of the Jungle omit the final chapter because it puts socialism on a pedestal as an option to have avoided all of that. And so, obviously a lot of people wouldn't like that. Preparedness says EVs are just not viable right now, too expensive and uncertain charging locations. Yeah, they don't last as long as they tell you they do. Oh, you can get 300 miles on a charge. Good luck. Good luck. Try it. I dare you. Plus, the maintenance costs are insane. Urban says EVs are toys for the rich and belong in a specialty car rental market along with Lamborghinis and other elite Lego cars. Dragon says there was a documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car. Didn't Alec Baldwin do the voiceover for that? I think I saw that. One of the big takeaways was that the GM dealer network thought that they would lose a fortune in maintenance, so they were very resistant. And Helter said Hertz has ruined people's lives by falsely accusing them of stealing their cars that were often on Hertz's lots at the time. Really? And Merv says now Hertz won't need as many diesel generators. Probably not. Probably not. And Gary Edwards says America and its millions of guns in private hands stands in the way of a transition to one world government. Importing illegal immigrants helps divide and conquer society with artificial chaos. There's plenty of artificial chaos going on all across the Western world, unfortunately. And in some places, it's been very successful, like Australia. Australia's been crushed. Their people are crushed. But I wanted to point this article out because, as you can see, things went very badly for Hertz trying to virtue signal with their all-electric fleet, thought they were going to get ahead of the curve, and it ended up putting them behind. It backfired. And they're not going to recover what they invested in those vehicles, used vehicles, even if they were never used. The fact that they had an owner, they could have 200 miles on them, and it's going to count as used, and they're not going to get the full value out of them. And I think it's funny that they're going to sell them and buy gas combustion engine vehicles with the revenue from that. That's hilarious. And Merv says Hertz figured out they didn't have the infrastructure and they were going to have to buy a lot of diesel generators. And Sean says YouTube killed the radio star. Yeah, you don't see music videos anymore. Not good ones anyways. As we travel around. Yeah, Urban says, go woke, get broke. Speaking of which, speak of the devil there, Urban. That ties in with the next article about Johns Hopkins University. And this is from the Messenger. Johns Hopkins diversity chief apologizes for broad definition of privilege, including all white people and English speakers. Why the hell does any company have a diversity chief? That's your first problem. That is your first problem right there, ladies and gentlemen. Diversity chief equals diversity hires, and it equals checking boxes instead of getting the job done. We get this to hold still. And that's Johns Hopkins Hospital right there in the picture. The chief diversity officer at Maryland's Johns Hopkins Hospital sent staffers a newsletter broadly describing privilege as held by white people, heterosexuals, males, and other groups, only to quickly disavow and apologize for the overly simplistic and poorly worded definition. Oh wow. So by that description, let me see, white and heterosexuals and male. So I'm triple privileged, folks. Triple, oh, quadruple, because I speak English. As part of January's issue of the hospital system's monthly diversity digest, oh my God. Oh my God. They have a monthly diversity digest newsletter. I wish I had a bag to throw up in. That is pitiful. Dr. Sharita Hill Golden, highlighted privileges as the diversity word of the month, according to an excerpt obtained and posted Wednesday on X, formerly known as Twitter. Privilege, this is a quote, privilege is a set of unearned benefits given to people who are in a specific social group, Golden wrote in part. In the United States, Golden wrote, people have privilege when they are a member of even one of these groups. Here it comes. Here's your bulletins or your bullet points. Number 1, white people. Number 2, able-bodied people. Number 3, heterosexuals. Number 4, cisgender people. Isn't that almost the same thing? For those of you who aren't aware, cisgender means that you like the gender that you were born with. Okay. I am a man. I like that. I'm fine with it. I was born male. I don't have a problem being male, so I'm cisgender according to them. Where am I? Number 5, male. Number 6, Christian. Number 7, middle or owning class people. Number 8, middle-aged people. And number 9, English-speaking people. Is that 9? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it is. Privilege, quote, is characteristically invisible to people who have it, Golden continued, saying that they may believe everyone could earn the same level of privilege through hard work, but that is not the case. Oh my God. The wide-reaching description ranked X users starting at the top. I bet it did. Unbelievable. Now, here's the apology. In a follow-up message sent one day after the newsletter and obtained by the Daily Mail, Golden walked back the definition. Basically, she got in trouble. The intent of the newsletter is to inform and support an inclusive community at Hopkins, but the language of this definition clearly did not meet that goal, Golden wrote in part. In fact, because it was overly simplistic and poorly worded, it had the opposite effect of being exclusionary and hurtful to members of our community. I retract and disavow the definition I shared, and I am sorry. You're not sorry that you were wrong. Hold on, let me grab this dictionary. Because, I always keep an old dictionary handy. And I'm going to look up privilege real quick. I want to look up privilege and read the original definition. Okay. Is that it? Let me see. Privilege. To grant a privilege. To grant a privilege. Let me see. These are like legal definitions. For or against a private person, immunity granted as an advantage or in favor to someone and not others. And then it says privileged, having or enjoying one or more privileges, not subject to disclosure in a court of law. A lot of the terminology for this vintage paperback Webster dictionary there, a lot of the definitions appear to be legal definitions of what privilege means. So these are modern interpretations. Again, white people, able-bodied people, heterosexuals, cisgender people, males, Christians, middle or owning class people. God forbid you manage to own your own home. A lot of people worked very hard to get that far. of all nationalities and genders. Middle-aged people, English-speaking people. Give me a damn break. Give me a damn break. I'll catch up a couple of comments here. Gary Edwards says instead of communist commissars, America has diversity chiefs. Yeah, and they get paid for it. Cruising says Chris White made the joke in the 90s that there's a huge number of poor whites in eastern mountains and center parts of the nation. Everyone likes to forget that. That's true. That is true. You know, it reminds me of, and this is the weirdest thing, there's an old sketch. Hey, Granny Smith. There's an old clip from the original Sesame Street from the early 70s showing a mailman, and this mailman rides a mule. And I think it's in the Tennessee mountains. You might can look this up, actually, find clips of it on YouTube. I'm not sure. But he goes, it's showing alternative postal delivery, basically. He says there's folks that live way up in the mountains here, and I can only go like once a week. I think he said once a week or twice a week. And the only way to get up there is by horseback. And it takes it takes them all day to get up there just to reach a handful of families. And it's like these barefoot people living in shacks, poor as hell. That comes to my remembrance reading that quote. Dragon says it's almost like she realized that the people she listed as having privilege are also humans who deserve respect. Almost. Nah, she's just backtracking because she got called out publicly. Basically, that's all that is. That's all that is. Helter says John Hopkins is gone, retract, disavow, whatever. Overeducated people are ignorant beyond hope. They lack real-world problem-solving skills and almost always have an overinflated sense of self. She's out of touch, is what it is. Urban says, I appreciate your viewpoint and would love to subscribe to your monthly Diversity Digest newsletter. No kidding. The fact that such a thing even exists offends me. And Raccoon Eyes says, why do these people have a platform to spew this nonsense? Because that is what is socially acceptable now. That's what's socially acceptable now. That's the direction that they're trying to go in, or that they're trying to force us into. And Brian says everything on that list is the complete opposite of what they claimed. No kidding. And Urban says, wow, my privilege score is 8 out of 9. Do you feel privileged? Oh, another good example, and this is how a lot of people think this really is. You might recall a vintage Saturday Night Live sketch when Eddie Murphy was still a cast member, and he did the thing with the white makeup. He did a reverse blackface and did himself as a white man to see what being white was like. Kitty, get out from under the door. That's Granny Smith trying to reach under the door. If you hear vibration in the background. And he would do things in the sketch like go into a bank and ask for a loan. And he was like, do I have to fill out paperwork? Oh, no, Mr. White, don't worry about paperwork. Here, take some cash, take some more, pay it back, or don't. We don't care. And they were doing things like that, alluding to the idea that white people live in this whole separate world when black people aren't around. There are people that really believe that. And people like this golden person, feed into that mentality and make the situation worse. Cruising says, I've taken to reporting people who use the cis crap to HR for hate speech. It's fun listening to them to try to sort out the complaints. And Urban says the basic Webster definition of the word privilege, a right or immunity granted as a particular benefit, advantage, or favor. Yeah, that still has like kind of legal ramifications. And Stuart is here. Glad you could make it. And Bingo says their inclusion secluded everyone. And Raccoon says, LOL, Mr. White. Yeah, I think he called himself Mr. White in the sketch, if I recall. And there was another one that he did where they were on the bus and he was waiting to see what would happen when there was a black person on the bus and everyone else was white, and then him in the makeup. And then the black person got off and it turned into Party Bus. and like stewardesses were walking around with trays of champagne and things. It's funny. And I think he was making fun of how people believe that sort of thing. But people really do believe that. People really do believe that. And Gary Edwards says, Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. I remember Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. And Mr. Rogers did not like that, by the way. And Merv said, this is how they condition you to eat the bugs with everybody. Excuse me. Don't eat bugs. Yeah, don't eat bugs. Eating insects is not good for you. Not good for you. Speaking of diversity, it gets worse. It gets worse. And we're going to jump from Johns Hopkins to Maryland. I don't know if anybody's, or Minnesota, excuse me. We're going to Minnesota, St. Paul to be specific. And this is a Newsweek article. You'll love this. St. Paul, Minnesota's all-female city council sparks backlash. You think? A move to create an all-woman city council in Minnesota has triggered a backlash from conservatives. I would hope a lot of other people would be upset about it, not just conservatives. And look at the wording, a move to create. They did this on purpose. St. Paul became the first U.S. city of its size to have a city council made up of all women on Tuesday, according to CBS News, citing the Center for Women in Politics at Rutgers University. The 7-member body has a majority of women of color, all under aged 40. And by majority, they mean 6 out of 7. 6 out of 7. Okay? All under the age of 40. So they're all Gen Z people, right? The inauguration ceremony was held at the Ordway Theater on Tuesday. So they put all of those people in place at once. Where's your voting process? I'm asking. This new class of leaders sends a clear message from St. Paul voters, I believe, to the whole world. So did they vote for this? Council President designate Mitra Jalal said, we trust the leadership of these women. We believe in their personal and professional experiences and vision, philanthropic and policy leaders, executive directors of nonprofits, and an engineer. Wow. Yeah, what kind of engineer? And philanthropic and policy leaders and executive directors of nonprofits. It couldn't get any worse. While this is historic, it should also simply be the way it is. Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan added, really? By posting on X, formerly Twitter, conservatives slammed the council and claimed the officials had only been appropriated to reflect diversity. I agree with that statement. I agree with that statement. And here's the picture for those of you who can see. This is the 7 women. And you can kind of tell all 7 of them are like a different nationality. She looks like she could be an Islander, black, a couple of Asians, somebody from the Middle East, a white person for good measure. This is, it says, and this person quotes here, all diversity elected officials who will likely turn the city into the ground. I think they meant to say run the city into the ground, but you get the point. If you're going to hire people deliberately just for this purpose, I want to know how they were voted for. I want to see those polls. Did they only present females to be voted on? Is that how they pulled this off? I don't believe this can go well. I don't believe this can go well. Executive vice presidents of nonprofits. Give me a break. Give me a freaking break. Oh my God. Yeah. Let me catch up a couple of comments right here. Preparedness says if there's 12 of them, there's scope there for the chaos every month of the year. Oh God. And then that's awful preparedness. And the governor's female too. Cruising says all women, all under 40. So diverse. Yeah, no kidding. And Preparedness says the box ticking exercises must stop. It's ridiculous. You know, it would be interesting if the white woman is actually transmogrified. Because I don't see any names here. Not that you would know, not that they would tell you. Wouldn't it be interesting if one of them's transmogrified? Eric Peter says, looks like the current state of Hollywood casting. Yeah, exactly. And Helter says to celebrate all members of the council belonging to the same group and to put emphasis on that fact and to claim that the group in particular is better than other groups is foolish and dishonest. But this is where they're trying to put us. This is where they're trying to put us. This is box checking at its finest. That's pure diversity hiring. I cannot believe all of those people are qualified. I can't believe it. Are qualified to run a city. And like the person put in the quote there, run the city into the ground is what they're going to do. Dragon says an all-white male council would be regarded as racist and sexist. This assembly should be viewed exactly the same. Minnesota is slowly turning into the Portland of the Midwest. Yeah. If it was all white, I wouldn't care if they did the job. Do the damn job. That's all I care about. I don't care what color you are. I don't care if you're male or female. Do the damn job. They don't do the job. You know what's a really interesting cross example? And this might be a little out in left field, but it reminds me of Spike Lee. You know who Spike Lee is. A little turd who claims that he likes to walk around in New York and mean mug white people on the streets. That is a quote from Spike Lee, by the way. That's why I don't like him. He's not a good director either. He's had a couple. Malcolm X was okay, but most of his work really isn't that good, to be honest. I don't think so. Anyway, that's my opinion. But he was quoted as saying also that the Celtics were a racist team, and that was when Larry Bird was on the Celtics. And of course, as many of you may be aware, if you're into basketball at all, Larry Bird's one of the best basketball players in history. He is, along with Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain and a handful of others. He's one of the best. You could put him on a top 10 list. He was really a fantastic player. At that time, it was a majority white team, and that's why he accused them of being racist. But by that same token, could you not also claim that all the other basketball teams were racist because they were majority black? Just something to mill around in your mind. Urban says Finland has a female prime minister who was 34 at the time, but the rankest party Fids tanked her. She just couldn't stop partying. Oh, no. Excuse me. That sounds familiar, actually. Cruising says, let's welcome the cast of Netflix new show, The Great Circle Jerk. They could turn this into a reality show. They could, like Basketball Wives or some garbage like that. Gary says 12 femme pirates on a community chest. No kidding. And Brian says, I thought Spike Lee was going to leave if Trump won the election in 2016. Oh, well. Was he on that list? Was he on the list of people that said that they were going to leave if Trump was elected and didn't go anywhere? I don't think anybody left, did they? All bunch of lying bastards. Helter says anyone who deliberately run for politicians have a shady ulterior motive. They're usually a tyrannical disposition. These ladies would make for terrible politicians. They don't understand the lay people. And Preparedness says people must vote. It's the only apparent power they possess. There's too many people trying to please too many people. And a couple more here. Urban says the best movie by Spike Lee was Do the Right Thing. It was probably the last time he had a fair view of race relations. Okay. And the Jericho says, wouldn't that be reverse racism? Maybe. And all people said Spike Lee is a racist, anti-Semite despot. despite his stepmom being the very same Jewish woman who used her business connections to launch his overhyped career, his films suck and are racist and sexist. Youch. I don't know about his mother or stepmother. I don't know about his family history. That'd be interesting. That would make that very interesting. As we shift gears here back to the migrant crisis. You'll love this if you're a taxpayer in the United States. And this is a Newsweek article. Migrants get up to 2 years rent free or free rent for new apartments. 2 years of free rent. A new program in Maine will provide asylum seekers, illegal immigrants, please, with free housing for up to 2 years. As cities across the country continue grappling with an influx of migrants. The United States has seen an influx of migrants entering the country in recent months, at times creating new challenges for city officials as they seek to allocate resources for them. Finding homes for migrants has become a key issue, particularly in communities that already have housing shortages. Many have been living in shelters and hotels across the country, but one city in Maine is launching a program to give some migrants free housing. That's Brunswick, like the bowling, the company that makes bowling shoes. Brunswick, Maine plans to open 60 new apartments for migrants, with 24 of the units already complete, according to local news station WCSH. The units are specifically planned for migrants awaiting for their work permits, a process that can take more than a year. The program is being led by the Maine State Housing Authority, the news station reported. And that's your tax money, okay? That's your taxes. And it says here the program has enough funding to pay rent for up to 2 years, but migrants will need to pay 30% of their rent once they find a job, if they find a job, which is not bloody likely. They're not looking for work, okay? Not looking for work. They're not looking for work. They're looking for a handout, and this is fantastic for them. And it sucks that an illegal immigrant who, for whatever reason they came here, because they have been getting invited to come by our government, could get 2 years of free rent. And I'm sure it will extend beyond that. And you have people that are here, that are in this country, legitimately struggling, who can't get any help. And I've been there. I've been there when I was still living in Massachusetts and working 2 jobs and working 80 plus hours a week to make ends meet, and rent going up all the time. Rent in major hubs like that can be quite expensive, and trying to take care of kids and all of that. Man, I could have really used some help on the rent. I could have certainly used a break, but I'm not eligible. I'm not eligible. I tell you. Yeah, there's so much that could be said there. Brian says, you stated it in the video, goodbye rant celebrities who want to leave the country because Trump won. That's right. They're not going anywhere. I don't believe that. And preparedness says 2 years and people are letting this happen. It's beyond belief. I doubt that's something they can vote for. That's something that the lawmakers voted on. You know, those secret closed doors, 3 a.m. in the dark meetings where they vote for a bunch of shit that the people, the constituents, would get sick if they heard it. That's how that happens. And yeah, how do you fight it? Vote them out? Yeah, let's try that because it works so well. It works so well. Gary Edwards says asylum seekers is code for foreign invaders, and houseless is code for freeloading hippie bums. Hippie bums, that's going back. Get a job, you dirty hippie. Raccoon says, wow, what about homeless Americans? I heard a story about a guy who lost both parents and was in foster care. Once 18, they kicked him out and he was homeless, had to join the military for a home. And then Dragon says this is the newest form of Obama phone manufactured controversy. And Gary says diversity, equity, inclusion is code for alphabet mafia. No kidding. This is hurtful. And if Maine gets away with it, other states will do it too. And again, that's taxpayer funded. Your taxes are paying for this. And you see this in the UK too. You're seeing this mess in the UK, aren't you? I'm pretty sure. And speaking of virtue signaling, I'm going to get to this in a second. Eric Peter says if California won't recall Newsom, then it will never work. Yeah. Because that guy is destroying. I mean, California was already in crappy condition. That guy is really destroying California. It doesn't have much left. ABC News. Decades after first government warnings against smoking, officials torn on menthol ban. And we've talked about this before. And preparedness confirms, he says, yes, here in the UK, things are just as bad. It's really unfortunate. The Western world's being destroyed. It says aides to, and we've talked about this subject a couple of times. Aides to President Joe Biden remain divided on a plan to ban menthol cigarette sales, according to several people familiar with this matter, who say concerns of voter backlash in the election and pressure from civil rights groups are stalling the measure. The fate of the proposal has been the subject of internal discussions in recent days among White House aides and top officials from the Department of Health and Human Services. The internal debate, described by officials who spoke on condition of anonymity because they weren't authorized to speak publicly, comes on the 60th anniversary of the landmark warning by the Surgeon General urging Americans not to smoke. If Biden wants to guarantee the rule is enacted under his watch, he would have to finalize the regulation by next week. This moment goes beyond public health. It's about who we are as a nation and whose lives we live. We strongly urge the administration to make the right choice and to make it now, basically by banning the sale of menthol cigarettes. And it goes on here. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, here we go. I knew this was going to be coming up. The National Action Network has declined to comment on reports that major tobacco companies have sponsored some of the organization's activities, but says it's concerned about criminal prosecution of black smokers. National Action Network has taken the position that unless there are real safeguards against criminal prosecution of black and brown communities, the proposed menthol ban will have unintended consequences. That's why health experts say it's particularly troubling that menthol cigarettes have been aggressively marketed to black communities. Nearly 85% of all non-Hispanic black smokers use menthol cigarettes. And I've covered this before. Because they claim this all the time, that it's historically targeted black smokers. They've historically targeted black smokers with their advertising, okay? And so I'm going to switch gears real quick, and I'm going to pull this up again because I've talked about this before and I've shown this before, okay? Vintage menthol cigarette advertising. All right? White woman, white guy, white woman, white guy, black guy, white couple, white guy, and a penguin. And we'll scroll down. Black guy, white person, white couple, black guy. We saw that one already. White couple, black couple, white woman. Does this look to you like it's heavily targeting black people in these advertisements? It looks like the majority of people they're showing are Caucasian. So that's a myth right there. I don't believe that. I've never noticed the magazine advertising because primarily it's magazine advertisement or billboards. They used to have billboards. They don't do that anymore. Targeted white people primarily, not blacks. Secondly, they're saying that it's cultural within that community and therefore more harmful to them. What about marijuana? Because I can't go anywhere outside without smelling weed somewhere now. And I'm in Georgia and I go to Atlanta. Everything smells like weed, and it's a pretty large black population. I'm not saying that white people don't smoke marijuana, but it's become a very cultural thing with black people. And everywhere you look, they want to legalize it, but then you want to ban menthol. Okay. Okay. Cruising says, my body, my choice until it comes to grown adults deciding what they put in their own bodies. Force things to cause fatal clots, ban things that might someday make an illness more likely. Yeah, I don't see him banning alcohol. Alcohol's a far worse drug than smoking. Gary says 85% of African American smokers buy menthol cigarettes. Dragon says the ban will create a smuggler's paradise, especially for something as easily concealed as cigarettes. Bootlegging is a thing. There's always some fool in DC who can't get that through their skulls. Well, yeah, but then they can feed into the prison industrial complex because you can get arrested and fined or jailed for selling cigarettes instead of marijuana now that marijuana is legal almost everywhere. Gary Edwards says menthol prohibition will create a black market for menthol cigarettes. Merv says our government has betrayed us, water, food, resources. I'm not in the special club. And preparedness says that looks like Trump in the Kool-Aid middle left. In the cool ad, middle left. Oh, right here? I think there's a close-up of him. Yeah. This is the same actor. I don't think that quite looks like Donald Trump, but he looks a lot more masculine than Donald Trump ever did. Oh, crap. There's Ronald Reagan, because he was in some cigarette ads. That's for Chesterfields, though. That's an old one. And Moki is here. Glad you could make it, Moki. Urban says secondhand smoke kills just as many people every year as the C virus. Does the C virus kill everyone? If you died from lung cancer from smoking, is it still the C virus? Helter says, I don't see anyone raising an issue with cocktails making alcohol more palatable. I can also see a spin-off of this targeting black tobacco smokers. Yeah, are they gonna target Swisher Sweets now? I mean, come on. And you could still get menthol through vaping. And Eric thinks it looks like Chris Reeve. Cruising says if you're going to smoke tobacco, smoke it the right way. Buy raw leaf and pack it in a pipe. Less carcinogens, just all natural plant stuff trying to kill you, and nicotine. And there you go. But that kind of thing always cracks me up. I wanted to run that over again because they always make that claim that it's like primarily. I mean, here's a few more up here. This one has a couple more black couples, 1, 2, 3, but then there's more white people. They always make that claim. There's a few more penguins that it specifically targets people of color, but I grew up during that era. I remember the magazine ads. I remember the billboards. It's majority white people that are being targeted. It's a majority of people, Caucasian, being targeted in those ads, as always. As always. Hey, Granny Smith. Granny Smith sitting in the corner, and Dusty is still in the chair behind me. But I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping things up because we're getting to the top of the hour. So again, you are watching and or listening to Coffee Talk, and that is at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube or Prepper University on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. And you can also find me on Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. So again, if you were able to join us here today, I appreciate it. Glad you were able to make it. Hope you got something out of the conversation. And hey, we'll try to catch you again on Monday.